Tamales don't have to be an all-day affair. Today we're going to cut down the time without compromising any of the flavor. Traditionally, to make a great tamale, you have to braise the meat, soak the corn husks, make the masa, and then steam it all. Today, we'll use an Instant Pot to cut down on the time and even use it to steam the tamales. Plus, we're going to elevate the flavors by using this amazing cut of beef.
To make great tamales, you need to start with a great cut of beef. We'll use Certified Angus Beef chuck roast. Using such a beautifully marbled cut of beef, a ton of rich beef flavor to the tamale, and ensure that it comes out fall apart tender, which is crucial when making tamales. Start by cutting it into large cubes, about 2 inches or so. This will help the beef to cook quickly in the Instant Pot, but still provide for a nice shredded texture. Generously season the beef cubes with adobo seasoning. Adobo is nice because it's an all-purpose Latin seasoning that adds a variety of spices and seasonings without having to measure out all of those ingredients. Preheat the Instant Pot on the Saute setting in order to sear the beef. Allow ample time to preheat because that nice brown crust adds so much flavor to the shredded beef. Use a nice neutral high heat oil for searing the first batch of beef. Searing the beef on 2 sides instead of getting an all-over sear will save time and still provide a deep flavor to the dish. When the first batch is done, reserve the seared cubes to a clean sheet pan or plate and start searing the second batch. Searing in the Instant Pot will also create a nice fond on the bottom of the pan, which lends so much flavor to the dish. And make sure to give the beef plenty of time to sear. It really is important to developing the flavor. Now we can move on to the aromatics that will give the cooking liquid tons of flavor. Start with stemming and seeding 4 guajillo chilies. These can be roughly torn apart by hand since they will be blended later. I love using guajillos in dishes like this because they add a great chili flavor and not a ton of heat, so you can adjust the heat levels to what you like. Add these to the Instant Pot along with some bay leaves and a cinnamon stick. Toasting over medium heat allows the oils to bloom and really bring out more flavor from the aromatics. You can see the color change in the chilies, but make sure they don't burn or else they'll turn bitter. Finally, add the rest of the spices and give them a brief toasting as well. Since they're ground, it will only take a few seconds. We'll use beef stock to deglaze the bottom of the pot, making sure to scrape up all of the brown bits and any spices that might have stuck to the bottom. Using low sodium stock will allow you to control the salt level and ensure that it's seasoned to your taste and not too salty. Bring the stock to a simmer and return the beef along with any juices to the Instant Pot and set it to pressure cook on high for 40 minutes. You'll want to get the corn husks soaking in hot tap water while preparing all the other elements for the tamales. It's a good idea to soak more than needed because some will tear in the process and you may not like their sizing, so it's always good to have a little extra. Soak them for at least 30 minutes, or you can even start with this step because there's no way you're going to oversaturate them. Make sure that they're all fully submerged in the warm water. While the beef cooks, we'll make the masa dough that encases the beef in the tamale. Masa is a dried nixtamalized cornmeal that will simply mix with chili powder, some baking powder for leavening, and a touch of salt before adding a little bit of fat to the mix. Traditionally, lard is used in this dough, but we're making beef tamales here, so using room temperature butter is a great substitute, plus it's probably already in your house. You can cut it with a spoon or a spatula, but really it works best just to get your hands in there. Cut the butter into the masa with your fingertips until it starts feeling sandy and there aren't any butter clumps left. Create a well in the middle and pour in hot water. Using hot water will help to hydrate the masa quickly and evenly. Mix the masa until it is smooth and a spreadable consistency. It should be slightly sticky, but if you slap your hand against the dough, your hand should pull away clean without the masa sticking to your palm. Cover with plastic wrap or a damp towel while preparing the beef. Make sure that your Instant Pot naturally depressurizes before removing the beef. Look at all that beautifully tender beef. This is going to shred easily after cooking for only 40 minutes. Don't forget to pull out that cinnamon stick and bay leaf. They're hiding out in there somewhere. You'll want to save the cooking liquid from the beef and mix it into the shredded chuck because it will add flavor and keep it juicy when it cooks for the second time. A pro tip is to use an immersion blender to puree the cooking liquid. You could use a traditional blender, just make sure to remove the top plug and cover with a towel. Blending will create an emulsified sauce and puree those nice chilies right into the liquid. When you go to shred the beef, it will still be extremely hot, so use caution. Using tongs and a fork works nicely to keep your hands out of that steamy, shreddy goodness. Now that it's shredded, add some of that reserve sauce directly into the beef and give it a good mix to ensure that all the beef is nicely coated. This would also be a good time to taste the beef and adjust the seasoning if needed. Adobo seasoning can vary in salt content depending on the brand. Patting the corn husks dry before starting the tamale process will help keep your workspace from getting drenched in that soaking water, and if you work fast enough, they're not going to dry out. To build the tamales, place about a quarter cup of the masa dough towards the top of the corn husk. Then, use another corn husk to help flatten it out. You'll want to cover enough surface area of the husk so that when you close it up, the beef will be completely enclosed in the masa while still leaving a border of husk around it. Add some shredded beef down the center of that masa patty. Don't be stingy, but make sure you can still wrap the masa dough all the way around that tasty shredded chuck. Pull in the sides of the husk towards the center and pinch it to seal the masa. Then fold the two sides of husk over each other. Finally, we'll tuck the tail end of the husk under the rolled tamale, then pinch the open end to make sure that everything is packed tightly into the husk. These steps will ensure a nice, densely constructed tamale that won't fall apart when they're pressure steamed. Repeat these steps using up all of the masa. If there's any beef left over, it's great for tacos, burritos, quesadillas, anything that could use a bump of flavor from some delicious shredded beef. Tamales are a little bit of work, but they're such a wonderful food. They really are a labor of love. You can get your friends or family involved and have a tamale making assembly line and maybe a couple margaritas. To finish making the tamales, use the steamer insert of the Instant Pot and fill it with water just up to the wire without completely submerging it. Using corn husks as a base is a great way to keep the tamales from sliding around or falling through the insert. Working in rows, lean the tamales against the side of the Instant Pot. They should fit snugly but not need to be pressed together too tightly. You'll want to make sure there is plenty of clearance for the steam to circulate when the lid is on. Once the lid is locked into place, you just need to pressure cook on high for 15 minutes. The beauty of using the Instant Pot is it takes what would normally be an hour-long process and cuts it down by so much. Make sure to allow the Instant Pot to naturally depressurize for 20 minutes before venting the steam. Immediately releasing the pressure can adversely affect the texture of the masa. These tamales will be crazy hot when you remove them from the pot, so take caution. It's also a good idea to let them rest for a little while because you want the masa dough to set up and have the perfect texture.
With this recipe, you can take a traditional technique, modernize it, which will significantly cut down on the time and bump up the flavor with the use of some high quality beef. Ooh, yeah, look at that. That's a tamale you can be proud of. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time here in the test kitchen at Certified Angus Beef.